Yeah.
It's crazy. So, well, it's great to meet you, man. Thank you for taking a minute out. And I'd love to begin our journey into your life as a coach by asking you 4 years ago, a rather momentous occasion happened for all of us, which was getting through this pandemic. There were still so many questions at this time 4 years ago. How did you ultimately make it through? And how did it change the way that you approach your life and even coaching?
Mm. Well, it was because of that that I ultimately did get into coaching. So this is a pivot for me. About a few years back, I made this pivot. And how did I get through COVID? It's interesting. So New York City, and at the time I was working in my former career as an HR business partner. I was in HR for many, many years,
Okay.
and working for a hospital as an HR business partner. And the way that the model worked at this hospital was that these teams were all on site. So a lot of the corporate HR folks were able to work from home during the start of that pandemic and throughout it really. The local HR teams, which is what I was a part of, we were expected to be on site and for the most part. I think it was like a hybrid situation, like 3 days home, 2 days on site. I actually purposely chose to come on site every day though, because what helped me the most was connecting with others. And I don't live with anyone. I was living at home, like with my cat, who is somebody, but she doesn't speak English. And so the connection with other humans is what I was craving at that. That's what I felt like I was craving. So how I got through it, I told my boss at the time, I was like, listen, can I come in every day? If you want. Uh, so that flexibility was there. So I did come in every day, and it's crazy to think that, like, I had zero fears about COVID, actual COVID, working in a hospital, working in like the height of the pandemic, because I just wanted to connect with people.
Yeah.
And if those people were frontline workers, they were frontline workers.
Yeah.
And that's what really helps me get through.
I remember about March 20th, somewhere around there, I was trying to cut my mother-in-law was making a fairy home out of like a milk jug, and I was trying to cut the handle off, and I cut myself, and blood's everywhere, and I'm getting ready to go to the hospital, going to ER. My wife's worried, like, oh my God, this pandemic's happening. It's like I'm going to the safest place on the planet. Like, if you want to go
Mhm.
anywhere, the hospital is the most antiseptic joint to go to. I mean, are you kidding me? So, I mean, but I kind of felt like that too. But I remember the doctor was hardcore. He was a real, just I could tell, real healthy dude, and he was getting ready to go to Machu Picchu, and he was going to climb the mountain, and he was going to do that whole thing. And I was like, just give me the skinny. What's up with this? And he said, this whole thing's going to hit people that are either infirmed, elderly, or just completely out of shape. And that was it. That was every headline that I was getting at that time, the fear mongering that was going on. He encapsulated it all perfectly. And that was
Mhm.
just so when you're talking about going into an environment like that, it's like this is the place where they have to have sterilization at a very high point that doesn't exist anywhere else on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. And then yeah, so it was that's how I like physically got through
Yeah.
the pandemic. And then what was also happening, I didn't really all know it in real time, but what was also happening was me coming to terms with the fact that I was falling out of love, or fell out of love with the work that I was doing,
Yeah.
spending uh, most of my day doing work that I was disconnected from. And I got into HR because I love helping people.
Yeah.
And like reflecting back, I don't say like everything is like 2020 in hindsight. And so looking back, it's it was a matter of in multiple organizations doing work. And the more and more I was spending in that role, I felt like the less and less I was actually helping people in the way that I wanted to help people,
Yeah.
just given the bandwidth, given the workload, and given the different expectations of me. And that was a culmination that led to my last bout of burnout.
Yeah.
And it was in those moments where I said, and my burnout like that, I it's something that I had struggled with many years. The whole chronic stress and burnout, I didn't quite know how to manage it all. And so it managed me. And it managed me through physical stress symptoms. It managed me through emotional stress symptoms. And so that's how I got into what I do today. It's because I put all of these puzzle pieces together finally in a way that made sense for scientifically and applied it to me and my own journey. And I haven't looked back since. And so that was a really important realization for me. And I think
Yeah.
COVID was a catalyst for that as well, because it really made me pause and think and reflect on, okay, now I'm at a space where I know that I don't love this work anymore. And that's a whole process of like grieving, and like that's like many years of doing this
Oh yeah.
work, you know? And
Yeah.
just like, wow, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And then that's where I actually, there was a spiritual guru that I follow. I still follow, not actively because she stopped doing Facebook Lives, but at a point in time, she was doing Facebook Lives like all the time. And I was tuning into one of these Facebook Lives, and one of these things was about purpose, life purpose. And she dropped a question in there that really hit home for me. And that question was, what do you always do for free? And I reflected on that big time. And through reflecting on that question, that's when coaching became more of a thing for me. And the more I looked into it, the more I was like, yeah, this seems like it could be it. And then when I started to get my training and stuff, and then doing the work now, obviously, yeah, absolutely. I'm able to now help people in the way that I want to help people. It's in a way that they want to be supported, not in the way that I want them to be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a really big deal for me.
So let me put you in front of a bunch of third grade students at Career Day right now. One of the curious kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you encapsulate that for him?
For a third grader, I would encapsulate it as I support folks in clarifying what they are meant to be doing in this life.
Which is which is what you
I
figured
say
out.
the words true North Star, but I don't know if a third grader is going to get that. Um, but yeah, basically, like, I also don't know if they know what stress and burnout is, so I wouldn't really use those words with a third grader. But
Right.
but yeah, so I support people in eradicating chronic stress and burnout so that they can live by their true North Stars. That's really what I do.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
A fireman.
Yeah. Did you pursue it at all?
I did not.
Okay. So take me back to where you were born and raised. What were these seeds that were put into you to want to get into both HR and to finally get to this manifest destiny where you found your purpose in helping people find their purpose?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Long Island, a town in Long Island, and it's it. I mean, financially, it's a very well off community, and so from the jump, lots of societal pressures and lots of uh, I would say self pressures to do well financially in whatever lane of whatever I chose. And I also remember I had no idea what I wanted to do. Fire truck was like a thing, but like long term, I didn't know. And then I remember like my sister, she it appeared to me that she always knew exactly what she wanted to do, and I was always so jealous of her like knowing exactly what she wanted to do. And I was never quite like that. And that, I mean, coupled with like so many other things that was going on with me, added to that self-pressure of me trying to fit in into a community that I felt like for many different reasons I didn't quite fit in. And uh, so at one point, the whole HR thing came about because I was having a convo with my dad, and he said, very successful businessman, and he had worked with many HR departments in his career, and he said, I think you'd be pretty amazing in the HR field. Like you're super personable, very professional. Like and so like he brought that forward, and I said, okay, let me jump into that field, and so I did, and I took that by storm, and I climbed that ladder, if you will, and it was that's how I would say I got into the HR field,
Yeah.
how I got into that epiphany during COVID. It was many years of struggling with my own symptoms, knowing that something was off, but I didn't quite know what it was. And then getting exposed to different pieces of that science puzzle, like different things spoke to me, and over time, I put all of this together in kind of like a framework on how we can effectively manage our stress so that we don't have to live and experience chronic stress or burnout.
Yeah. So who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration that's helped you kind of transition into this role in your life and just overall?
Hero. I would have to say, like, this may sound like off-putting for many, but like I would consider myself a pretty significant hero in this journey because the decisions that I've made to pivot in this way, that took a lot for me to do. And and I celebrate that, and I really honor that part of me. I honor how I've gotten to this place, and that wouldn't have been possible without like my own perseverance, my strength, and journey of building my own confidence to do something like that. So I would absolutely throw myself in the ring for hero. I would also say that spiritual guru who I did follow pretty significantly for a time, just her story, unbelievable story, and and the insight that I received from her and how I applied it to my journey. I would say my parents as a pretty solid, I talked about the pressures of feeling like you have to financially succeed coming out of that. I never really received that from them per se. I don't think. I really think it came from the society and myself. Uh, and so for them to kind of parent me through my lack of clarity, I think that's a big deal given the community that we were in. And and so I would say they are a couple of my heroes. Yeah.
So if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating or interesting, who would it be? Who'd you love to meet and hang out with a little bit?
Oh, 100% Kelly Clarkson,
You,
without a shadow of a doubt,
do you watch her show a lot?
all the time.
Okay, do you know a guy in Nashville? It's a duo. It's John Yeager and his wife Lindsay. They do cocktails on there.
Yes.
He's one of my best friends from Kansas City. He was in a band. We were friends. In fact, this is the weird thing. I was in in our kitchen in our little bachelor pad in our 20s when he had his first shot of I think it was either vodka or tequila, and I thought he was going to lose his mind. It was he because he never drank and he had it And I always think about that. But yeah, John Yeager is one of my favorite people. And he sent over a clip years ago, and I was like, how did you land this gig? But he's doing really good. He has a company called Poor Taste. Anyway, he's on there and kind of knows Kelly, I think, a little bit. So, but I'm always blown away that she was the first winner and she's done so well because it's not a guarantee. I mean, you got to have moxie, you got to have stamina, you got to have grit, and she has been everything and she's flown since then.
She has flown, and yeah, like when I meet her one day, because it will happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she gets this all the time, like, but I literally voted her face off on that show, and just like she had me in that first audition, she had just vocally, like, just something connected with me, and I was like, she's insane.
Yeah.
She is insanely talented, and then to see her evolve in the way that she has, and she always talks about it, and like how she's doing this. So she's like, I never would have guessed that I would ever host my own show like this. But like 6 seasons in, I think she's in now, or 4 seasons in at this point, like unreal. And like she can talk
Yeah.
to anybody.
Yeah.
She like from the most energetic person on the planet to like a doorknob. Like anyone who's sitting on that couch, she can talk to.
Uh-huh.
And the doorknobs are hilarious because like the discrepancy in energy is hilarious. She's quite high energy. And but yeah, no, she's so gifted,
Yeah.
and what everyone says is that she's so down to earth, and that's what I get completely from what she's given out. Like just a completely real person, and that really strikes home with me.
Well, we put it out there, so we'll see what happens. So I'm curious, you're in the business of giving a lot of yourself to help your clients get to a better place, but you also have to hold back to evolve as a human being. What is that mix for you? What is the gas in the tank every day to do this job and to evolve as a human?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of practicing what I'm preaching, and I know coaching is not teaching, but I facilitate workshops as well, and I partner with organizations on stress relief events, and in those venues, yeah, I preach, I talk, I give the science, and so it's it one of my clients actually calls it the O'Brien 10, and it's really like 10 domains of science and in how we can live this life without chronic stress and burnout fueling that bucket. And so I do that. It's every day that I do this, and some of it's habitual, but some of it still, like, I need to focus on it to make it happen into my life. So a big portion of that is that. There's also a daily. I'm very committed to a meditative practice that I do, and meditation is very different for everybody. But my practice is truly like designing, continually designing better versions of myself, and it's identifying the parts of me that I don't want anymore. It's identifying the parts of me that I do want, and then it's just like envisioning what I do want to experience and become. Sitting on that Kelly Clarkson chair is one of them, by the way. But yeah, so I do that every day. Do this meditative practice every day. That's one of the things that I fuel my bucket. The physical activity is part of the O'Brien 10. Very committed to that. The nutrition, like all of it, all of that O'Brien 10. I can get into those specifics if you'd like, but I'll leave it at the O'Brien 10 for now. And the other thing that I'll say is going on these different travel adventures, which fits into one of these O'Brien 10 for sure. It's called this fun category, right? Having fun. Uh, I consider that for me, having fun, traveling the globe, going on these like crazy adventures. It does fuel me, and very excited to kind of to head out on my next one in a couple days. So that's what I would say is what I do to manage my own energy.
So, of all of the things that you've done and evolved into in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I am most proud of. I think one of the most proudest moments I have was picking up and relocating to a different country for a year. That that today still seems to be like quite up there. And this was years ago. This was in '06 to '07 is that year when I was away. I was living in Australia. I chose to kind of move to Australia and just work and live over there on my own, just to do it. I think that this is a connection here with like travel and immersing myself into different cultures. I think that that's a thing for me. And I had done a study abroad program in college, but that was on my parents' dime. And I wanted to kind of prove to myself that I could do this on my own financially. And there's that financial thread again. Um, and and that's something that I'm very proud of myself on doing. The first few months, not so fun, but then the next 9 months, like the best 9 months of my life. Um, I'll say one of the best portions of my life was in Australia. And then I'll have to say like what I'm
Yeah.
doing now in not only like continually to hone in on myself and who I want to be and become, but serving the people in the way that I am, because like my vision is to eradicate this planet of chronic stress and burnout. I know it's possible. I know we can do it. And when that happens, it's just like how much power would this planet have and the people on it? How much more meaning would they be experiencing in their life if that was a thing? So I think both of those things are coming up for me when you ask that question.
It takes a lot of courage to do something like that, to go somewhere. You know, I don't think people understand, because I remember the first time I went to Europe in my early 20s, I went to Italy. I was writing a friend, a pen pal in Italy, and went over, and that's where my ancestors were from. And I remember just how nervous the language barrier, and liras was a huge denomination before the euro. And you
Yeah.
hear all these pickpocket stories and all these things. But I think it's kind of that thing about life. You know, there's a level of like consternation and pain that opens the door to this absolute wonderment, and of just because you had no idea going in. I mean, you're going into a brand new country. You're in America your whole life, you know. You walk into this other place, but once you got your tread down, it had to be euphoria every day to be waking up in this land. And Australia to me is one of the places I would love to go to. I just can't imagine how wondrous that place has to be.
Yeah, it's stunning. And yeah, to your point, it's like I always joke it was tough to make friends there initially, but like once you kind of like infiltrate like a group of people, like you're family.
Yeah,
And that's what I still years later, we're not living with each other anymore, but years later, like this group of people, we still call each other family. And it's insane to me how that can happen. And yeah, just incredible. Incredible to to lose yourself in a way. You're losing yourself in a way because you're not living in the way that you are accustomed to. You're not living in the way that you have been conditioned and habituated. You're not in your comfort zone.
yeah,
You're literally like going outside your comfort zone. And so yeah, I think you always learn something about yourself when you put yourself in those positions. And I think this is why I love so much like these travel adventures, because it's just I'm always looking to push myself outside my comfort. Scuba diving is
yeah.
another thing that I recently got into
Wow.
a few years back, and that was literally I had for years a fear of, not only a fear of sharks, but a fear of open water. And I wanted to get over that because like I found myself like on these trips on these boats and I'm like, you all have fun in there. I'm gonna hang out on here. But like I wanted to be a part of that. And
Yep.
I was holding myself back in that way, or the fears were holding myself back in that way. And so I got into school. What's the one thing that's gonna push myself out like beyond that comfort zone in that way? It's learning how to dive, scuba dive. And those first few training dives, I'm not gonna lie to you, like I'm like, what am I doing to
Yeah.
myself? Insane. But once I got past that threshold, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
And I crave getting in that water now and even having sharks swim around me. It's just like it's such a moving, incredible, surreal experience.
Yeah, for sure. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
My perception of me is someone who is driven, focused, persistent, uh, not as confident as I still want to be, adventurous, funny, caring, genuine. The authentic piece is also confidence and authentic. I think friends would say that I am, but I'm still working on those two things because I'm all about continuous improvement, and we can always level up, and
Yeah.
I really want to level up those things in particular.
So speaking of leveling up, if anyone wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business, where do they go?
They would go to my website, and that website is www.themindblowingcoach.com. In that website, there's all sorts of information you can get immersed in a couple of the different things. There is a downloadable PDF of that O'Brien 10. So if folks are experiencing this chronic stress and burnout and are looking ways to manage that on their own, get in there. The tab is free stress relief tips. Just put in that email address, and you can get your own copy of that PDF. And then there's also an option on my site to schedule some time with me, some free time with me for a free stress relief strategy call. That is what I live and breathe. It's truly all about this, like, how do we live without chronic stress and burnout so that we can actually live that more inspired life of meaning, of purpose, of health and joy. Because like untreated chronic stress and burnout, or unmanaged, not untreated, unmanaged, can lead to all sorts of negative health outcomes on both the physical side and the emotional side. And all of that is completely possible to live without naturally,
Yeah.
naturally, right? And because the science is there, and that's how they can reach out to me if they're interested in learning more or want to, consider partnering with me.
And you're living proof of it. Andrew, thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Keep doing the wonderful work, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great. Have a great trip to Africa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I
Take
will.
care.
Thank you.